Thank you very, very much. So I'm Caroline O'Sullivan and I'm the Director of Services with the ISPCC, and I want to extend a very warm welcome to you all here this morning for our outcome seminar. The title of this particular seminar is that we know why we need to measure outcomes, but now let's look at how you actually do that. And that, even though it sounds like a very simple question, is quite a difficult one, and one that we have been working on for a number of years. So why we need to measure outcomes is pretty straightforward. We need to show that our services are achieving what it is we set them up to achieve in the first place. It has been said that in order to understand something, you have to be able to measure it. So in order to understand your services, or the services you're providing to children and families, you have to actually be able to measure the effect of those particular services. We have to measure outcomes because we need to know whether children and families who have been involved in our services are actually benefiting, or that there has been some change or some difference in a positive way for those particular families. So are the services effective? Are we making a difference? Are we providing a value for money service response? Because all of us in the voluntary sector have to face that challenge. There is high expectations on voluntaries and community organisations all over the country to provide services, but provide them at very little cost. The value for money response, the return on investment. While these are business terms, more and more they are becoming part of delivery of voluntary-based services. We measure outcomes because we have to know what we're achieving, and not just in terms of being able to share that or talk about that or even gloat about that, but we have to know that as organisations so that we can actually plan our service design and service delivery models. So if change is required in order to improve what we do with families, then you need to measure outcomes so that you can actually see why we have achieved outcomes in some areas, why we haven't achieved in other areas, so that you can actually learn from that and move forward with it. Measuring outcomes also helps us to predict what children and families or what client cohort is best suited to the services that you're actually offering. So what's really important and what we're going to be looking at today is how ISPCC has now come, following a pretty long journey around how we now measure outcomes. We have to be able to share this learning so that we can all, as a societal group, move forward and actually learn from one another. But whatever tools you use, or whatever tools your organisation uses in terms of measuring outcomes, they have to be able to show concrete evidence of change. Organisations all over the country provide outcomes in their annual reports, like ISPCC do. We talk about percentages in terms of outcomes we have achieved, or positive results from the outcomes we have, or from the work we have actually done. But what isn't there isn't a kind of a standardised approach. There is no clear set criteria laid out that voluntary organisations and community organisations and even statutory organisations need to follow, so that we can compare those results, so that we can actually see, is what we are doing effective? And if so, why is that different to another organisation who is also achieving outcomes? We have to share our learning, and that is what today is about. We want to start the debate about how you actually measure outcomes, so that we can all move forward and actually provide quality services to the children and the families we work with throughout the country. So in order to measure outcomes, you have to know what it is you're measuring. What is it you're trying to find out at the very end? Do you want to find out that our staff are fantastic, which they are? Do you want to find out that the service delivery model that we're using is actually working? Will something else be better? So you have to know what questions you want answered. And once you have clarity around what questions you want answered, then you can actually begin the whole process of designing measurement tools. But as I said, it's really important that you can't just base it on one tool. It is an amalgamation of a number of different factors, things we've always used in terms of observation and staff skill, but also the voice of the various stakeholders involved, be that the child, the parent, the key referring body, and the family being equally important. So rather than me talking through what kind of services ISPCC actually provide on a day-to-day basis, I'm just going to show you a very, very short clip. And it's a clip of some of our children in our children's advisory committees in Monaghan and in Dublin, and some of our volunteers who will let you know what kind of services ISPCC are providing today.
Childline is a support service that listens to kids whether they're having a bad day or a good day and they just need someone to talk to.
Childline gives children the space to talk, and they don't actually tell the children to do this, but they kind of give them advice to help them figure it out for themselves.
There is a few different ways to get in touch with Childline. You can call them, you can text them, you can chat to them online.
The phone calls is 24 hours, but unfortunately the texting and web chat is only 12 hours a day.
Childline is great for kids because it shows them that there is a good side of life. There is always someone there to help, like no matter what.
We said very little, my fellow volunteer and I. We just listened as this child openly and honestly recounted her experiences. I was moved by her story, stunned by her honesty, her openness and her trust in this service. I felt an enormous sense of privilege to have been there with her in that moment. Here on the street, in freezing conditions, Lan have created a safe place for this child to tell her story and be listened to without judgment or reproach. O'Connell Street Bridge, Temple Bar Arch, the Halfpenny Bridge. To most people, these are just place names in Dublin. But if you're a Lan volunteer, that's your office. This is where we meet our clients and deliver our service. Lan have a presence on the streets of Dublin 365 days a year. And every day, our presence out there sends the same message to this extremely vulnerable client group. We see you, we will listen to you, and we care.
I'm a parent mentor for Child Focus. My role involves meeting with the same parent for 6 months on a weekly basis. The parent talks about all sort of issues that's going on in their life that may be affecting their family or impacting on their family life. And we enable them to talk about different strategies and different ways in which they can cope with the issues that are impacting on their family. And this empowers them to make different decisions and to implement different strategies with their children at home.
When I was talking with them, I felt real happy just to say my feelings out and just to get it out of my mind. They just took me in, looked after me, and then they just gave me my personality back. It just got me just to be myself again instead of just hiding everywhere away from everyone.
The ISPCC advocates for children. The ISPCC is there to support children and families for what they need. The ISPCC speaks out for children and tries to make Ireland better for them.
So really that was just setting the scene in terms of the types of services that we offer. And I suppose when you look at the variety of services that we're providing, there was a very big challenge in terms of how we measure outcomes for all of those different services that are being delivered in very, very different ways. So that's what today is going to be about. I'm going to give you a quick run through the speakers that we have today and just to give you a quick look at what it is we're going to be discussing. We're hoping by the end of the day you'll have a very clear picture of the types of outcome measurement tools that we're utilising. We want to be able to show you real-life demonstration of our outcome evaluation tool, which is an online computer-assisted self-interviewing, no, that's a long word, but called CASI for short, system, which allows us to actually engage with our clients in their own homes, in their own time. And we know that our families and the children we're working with have really responded positively. In saying that, I want to introduce you to Mr. Neil Hopkins, who's over here on the left, sitting at the blue desk, as we're referring to it as. Neil has been absolutely instrumental in assisting the ISPCC in developing this brand new outcome evaluation tool. He has been available this morning to provide kind of live demos of what this actually looks like, so that you'll actually experience what it is children and families will experience when we ask them to give us their feedback, and particularly around what difference they feel the services have made. And Niall has kindly agreed to be around again after the seminar, so that you all still have that opportunity if you haven't done so already. Our first speaker today is Dr. Helen Buckley. Dr. Helen Buckley is the Associate Professor in Trinity College Dublin, and also the course coordinator of the postgraduate course on child protection and welfare. And her particular presentation is going to be entitled The Voice of the Family. Following on from Dr. Helen, we have Ms. Tess Noonan. Tess Noonan is the ISPCC's Quality Assurance Manager, and Tess is going to be giving you the complete rundown about what exactly the ISPCC are using in terms of measurement tools. Dr. Emma Clare, who is the Senior Research and Development Officer within the HSE for Dublin and North East. And Emma Clare has played a pivotal role again in our outcome evaluation working group, has been guiding us, showing us the way, teaching us in many ways around research and utilising data, and asked such pertinent questions that we can now stand proud over our final product, which is our outcome evaluation tool. Emma will be speaking about her experience of being part of that particular group, but more broadly around looking at developing an outcomes-based approach across the country. We then have Janice Wedlock. Janice is our childhood support worker from our Monaghan office, and Janice too was a key part of our working group. And Janice is going to be talking through a very personal, memoir of her experience of being involved, from theory, the whole theory around measuring outcomes, to the actual hard, cold-faced reality of going out and doing this on a daily basis and making that part of her job. Finally, and last but not least, we have Tracy Monson, who's our Regional Manager for Services in the North East region. And Tracy has the enviable task of pulling it all together and actually summarising the main points that we feel are important from today's discussions, but also looking at where we go next, because this journey has not ended. So Dr. Helen Buckley, I'm going to invite up to speak very, very shortly. As I said, she's the Associate Professor in the School of Social Work and Social Policy. Her main research interests are around child protection policy and practice, including service user views, which is particularly important, I think, in light of today's seminar. She recently completed a study commissioned by the Department of Children and Youth Affairs and around the development of recommendations from all the various child abuse inquiries. Now, this report is due to be published in early December, so we're all eagerly awaiting its publication. She is currently the chair of the National Review Panel, which examines service delivery in cases where children who have been in the care of the state are known to the statutory authorities that have died in care. Alongside all of this, she continues to provide consultancy to the department and to the National Safeguarding Board for Children in the Catholic Church. And she is also, on top of all of that, a member of the Oversight Board of the Childcare Reporting Project. Today's presentation on the voice of the family will be looking at the research that reflects the perspectives of children and families who are the recipients of child welfare and child protection services. And in particular, Helen will be drawing from research and studies conducted in the US, the UK, Australia and Ireland. So without further ado, I'd like you to welcome Dr. Helen Buckley.